Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeremy Dawson, the Policy and Program Specialist at NAST, and I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar entitled Evaluating Outreach and Earned Media. I hope everyone's doing well, and I want to thank you out there for tuning in this afternoon. This is the second in our TMTS 2.0 webinar series where we are rebooting 4 sessions from July's Treasury Management Training Symposium for attendees and newcomers alike. And we hope you'll join us each Wednesday in August at 2 p.m. Eastern for the whole lineup. And registration details and more information is available on the NAST website, nast.org. I'm going to provide a brief run through of the webinar features we have available. In the handouts section, you can download a copy of the slide deck used today, the speaker bios, and a brief transcript of the videos we'll be viewing. And we also encourage you to interact with us today by typing your questions into the box in the questions section at any time during the presentation. And our moderators will present these to the panelists at the end of the formal presentation. Please note that the webinar will be playing some short video clips, and to ensure that you hear the video, make sure that your computer audio is turned on. And this webinar is being recorded and will be posted to the webinar archive on the NAST website for your future reference. We have the webinar scheduled for an hour, a lot of great content to get through. So without any further ado, on behalf of NAST and the National Association of Unclaimed Property Administrators, I'd like to welcome and thank our speakers for presenting to our membership today and our attendees for joining us. Kari, I will turn the floor over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it. This is Kari Arkstrom, and I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Learning here at NAST. And I'm pleased, along with Jeremy and David Milby, who I will introduce in just a moment, to be presenting today's webinar to you. As Jeremy mentioned, this is the second of 4 in a series from our TMTS conference that was held in June in Orlando. So some of you may be joining us for the first time. Welcome. Some of you maybe were in Orlando and just had too many other options of sessions to attend and missed this one. Welcome. And for those of you who maybe actually sat in on this session, which I did, and you just want to see it again because the videos you're going to see are terrific. So again, thanks for joining us. So as was mentioned, this is the second in our series. Last week, we heard from speakers talking about 529 and specific branding and outreach programs that 2 states in particular were using to let people know about college savings plans. That is archived, and you can go back and watch it if you would like to. Next Wednesday, we invite you back, same time, same place, to hear about financial technology, FinTech, and how to apply this technology and gamification to your financial empowerment. So we invite you to come back for a 2.0, a reboot of that session. Our last one will be on August 22nd, and that will be on a global economic update. And this one you're in for a surprise because actually we did not host this session at the annual conference. They just ran out of time and space. And so we are bringing back an all new session. And so we encourage you to sign up for that. They are free and they are for members only. One quick announcement, next Wednesday, if you're in the financial technology world or want to learn more about it, not only do we have the webinar at 2 o'clock, but we have an online radio show at 9 a.m. And so look to your newsletter that you receive every day from NAST with all of the details. So it's sort of going to be, you know, a financial technology Wednesday next week. So really exciting that we have 2 live events in the same day. So if you have any questions about the continuous professional learning that NAST is conducting, please let me know. I'm here to listen to all of you and what we can do moving forward to make sure that you are getting the professional development that you all need for the work that you do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Milby. He's going to be introducing our speakers. And David here on the NAST team is the lead for the NAPA network. And I know that you will recognize his voice the minute he comes on. So David, I'm turning it over to you. David, you might be on mute. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Kari. I am David Milby. I'm the director of NAPA. I work closely with the NAPA Executive Committee and the membership, and we are excited to work today with NAST and present this great session, this webinar. So with us today, we're very pleased to have Benno Schmidt. Benno is with our corporate affiliate firm, Verus Analytics, and we appreciate them. Benno is the media director with them and does a lot of great work. He produces videos that tell stories about people who benefit from unclaimed property proceeds, and they're very moving and important. Benno, in his past, his work's been featured on the Early Show, NBC, MSNBC, CNN, many places too numerous to go into here. You can read his full bio. Benno is an Emmy-nominated reporter, and we're very lucky to have him involved in our association. Also presenting today will be Paris Irvin, who's also a TV personality in the past. She was a reporter and anchor, and she turned her talents toward the state of Illinois. They were very fortunate to get her. She's worked in several departments. She now serves as the chief spokesperson for the Illinois State Treasurer. She oversees messaging, earned and paid media advertising, and other things. Her official title is Chief Communications and Civic Engagement Officer. So thanks to both of you. Really excited to hear. I'm sure you probably got some updates in this as well. So Paris, before we get to Benno, I'll turn it over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, David. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to join you today to share our experience with getting 2 consumer-friendly laws passed. As David mentioned, I'm Paris Irvin. I'm the Communications Director for State Treasurer Frerichs. I formerly held some titles with various state agencies throughout Illinois and formerly worked for an ABC affiliate here in Springfield, Illinois. So I joined the State Treasurer when he was sworn in 2015. And when State Treasurer Frerichs learned that some life insurance companies were getting over on grieving families and not paying what was owed, he was not happy about that, and he wanted to do something. So we put our heads together and launched a public policy media campaign, and this was really an opportunity for us to spread awareness and really get the public fired up, get legislators fired up, so we can make some changes. So the communication shop worked with our legislative team, our legal team, and our unclaimed property division really to just map out a plan and find a solution to this issue. So I always say we're a small but mighty communication shop. As mentioned, I'm the communications director, but we also have a press secretary and a digital director. Both of them are based in our Chicago office. I'm in the state capitol. We also have a print shop, a press assistant, and a graphic designer. So I realize some states are smaller, your communications shops are smaller and may not even exist. But I want you to know that what we did here can be accomplished with a smaller team. You may have to be a little bit more strategic and creative, but it can be done. So when we launched this campaign, we jumped at the media opportunities that presented themselves, but I would say that we were pretty strategic and persistent, and in turn, I believe we were quite successful. So today I want to talk about how we successfully got those 2 bills signed into law, how we raised public awareness with no budget, and how we beat the very, very powerful life insurance lobby. So when we look at House Bill 4633, the Unclaimed Life Insurance Benefits Act, that was our first piece of legislation that was introduced, and that requires insurance companies to compare their life insurance annuity policy accounts against the Social Security Death Master File on an annual basis. It also requires companies to make good faith efforts to locate and pay beneficiaries, which is amazing that some companies failed to do this. So we wanted to change that. House Bill 302, the Life Insurance Reform Act, that came later. So a lot of times with legislation, when you don't get everything up front the first time, you reintroduce something or introduce something new that gets you everything else. And so that's basically what happened here. This bill required insurers to evaluate policies in force since 1996, including those currently lapsed or terminated status. Now, one bill was going forward, one bill basically reaches back to make sure that beneficiaries were paid out. And at the end of the day, you know, some of these life insurance companies were using a loophole to avoid paying policyholders, and that in turn was increasing their profit margin. So we wanted to put a stop to that, and you know, we trust that this legislation that eventually passed and was signed into law will help do just that. So with House Bill 302, that one was a extremely tough sell because that one was retroactive. So I would say that one probably was a little more difficult because the industry as a whole was not happy. So when you look at this timeline for our first bill, House Bill 4633, Kemper Corporation sued us. It's a very large insurance company. We wanted to do an audit. They sued us to stop it. And that's when this really kicked off because, and we really just sent out a press release. I would say that was how we responded. You know, we wanted to go in and audit their books. They said, no, we don't want you to. We said, okay, we'll take this public. And that's what I like to say, that's when the real fun began. And so as you see us move throughout the months, you know, I feel like we got a lot accomplished, but that really was kind of the kickoff. So that was in November 2015. In February, we introduced this legislation. It passed unanimously in both chambers. That was in May. And then we called on the governor to sign it. So we did get that legislation signed eventually, but not before we held some statewide hearings. We did get a lot of, you know, we got a lot of media coverage, a lot of pickup, quite a bit of interest. And so we began these statewide hearings. We signed an executive order, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, and got some legislators and advocates involved. And we eventually did invite Kemper as well to participate. But that bill got signed into law in August of 2016. So that was a really, really great effort internally and, you know, externally with some of the advocates that we used. So as mentioned, we didn't get everything we wanted in House Bill 4633, so we introduced House Bill 302. And this one is the one that I said got a lot of pushback. You know, reaching back and looking at who they may not have paid out was a huge issue for this industry. So they hired a lot of lobbyists. They spent a lot of money to fight back. So we introduced this legislation in January of 2017. In April, 60 Minutes did us a huge favor and aired a special on this issue. And it really was great timing for us because it put this issue on a national stage, and that's exactly what we needed. And so we really built upon that and used that in several ways. You know, we shared it on social media. We reached out to legislators with that information and just showed them that this is not an Illinois issue. This is a national issue, and we have to put a stop to it and hold these life insurance companies accountable. House Bill 302 passed both chambers in May. In June, we held 7 press events throughout the state of Illinois. The governor pushed back really hard, and he issued an amendatory veto. Eventually, we did get that overridden by the House and Senate, and that was a huge victory for us because, again, so much money had been spent, so many people had been hired to make sure this didn't move forward. But we prevailed, and it was really a big deal. The governor tried to amend the legislation. He really wanted to do away with contingency fee auditors, and you know, our argument was you're trying to remove a tool that holds these companies accountable, and you know, we were willing to fight back, and we did, and we were victorious. We had Kemper drop the lawsuit in February 2018. And so from a media perspective, this was a really incredible issue. It dealt with the public, you know, there was some controversy, and people, it was real people. It was mom and dad and grandma, and so people could really connect and resonate. You know, it really resonated with people. So from a media perspective, when we look at the life insurance media plan, so we did quite a few press releases. I would say 20 at least. It seemed like a million. Every time I turned around, we were putting out a new press release or hosting a press conference. We had probably 10 plus press conferences. We had media availabilities. We did an editorial board circuit. So we went to multiple editorial boards trying to get some support, and we got a lot of great editorial support because people were just shocked that this was even happening. A lot of one-on-one interviews. Sometimes we set those up. You know, if the treasurer was, you know, in a certain community, we'd reach out to the reporter or the TV station, radio station in that area. Other times it was something that the press just wanted to talk about. Let's get an update on this. Where are we? You know, what still needs to happen? So we did quite a few one-on-one interviews. And then when it comes to social media, I love social media because it really just helps amplify your message. And so I think it's just a great tool to get the word out. And also for us, you know, we really had an opportunity to coordinate with some legislators, some advocates to like and share and tweet some of our information. And so that was also helpful. So I mentioned we created this task force on unclaimed life insurance policies. So we got that, we had legislation go forward. It passed the Senate, and then session ended before it passed the House. So a lot of times, as many of you know, you're it's a rat race to beat the clock, basically, and get all your bills through. We had some other priorities, and this one didn't make it before the deadline. So instead of saying, oh, well, we'll try again next year, we thought we need this to happen now. So we made it happen by using the treasurer's executive powers, and he just created a task force. It was a resolution, and we made it official and issued a press release. You know, in some cases, that's how you make it official. We issued a press release and let folks know that we're starting this task force, and we wanted people to participate. So with the task force, it was really a bipartisan group of elected officials. So AARP was with us along the way, NAACP, and Citizen Action Illinois. And we also had public testimony. So the whole purpose of this task force was for our panelists to hear firsthand from the public, and we wanted to educate the public about the issue and raise awareness. And we also wanted to identify steps to fix the problem. So, you know, we had done a lot of legwork and research, but was there something we were missing? Is there something else that we can learn from this public testimony that we can include in a report that we eventually would hand over to the legislators? So we moved forward with the task force. It had an incredible turnout. From a media perspective, we had beneficiaries come out. We had people who would just show up and say, I just want to see, you know, what happened. Sometimes we would even get life insurance companies to just see what it was all about. So we also invited Kemper, as I mentioned earlier. They did not show up, but they were invited to participate in the task force. So I had mentioned that we had multiple press conferences. So we held statewide public hearings. With each public hearing, we invited the media. So we would send the media advisories to invite area media. So Peoria, Illinois, for example, we would send a media advisory. I would say most likely, more often than not, we send media advisories the day before an event. in some of these cases, if there was if we had already confirmed beneficiaries, we would try to send those out a little earlier. We did not send out what we would typically do in a situation like this, where we would send out a statewide press release. We held back on the press release. We didn't post it on the website or anything. We only handed it out to each respective event because we didn't want to preempt the news. So if we did an event in Peoria, Illinois, we would put out the advisory a few days before, sometimes the day before, and then we would pitch, but we would hand deliver the press release. So that way, that news doesn't spread, and then we don't get coverage in the next city that we try to go to. So, we pitch these personal stories uniquely tailored to each area, and I would say that is what really helped us with the media coverage. The media knowing that they had a personal story, a personal connection, is what really got them there. And, you'll hear from Benno shortly, and someone on our team, Lee, I just have to give some kudos to. He and Benno really just did a great job of queuing up these beneficiaries and finding these people to speak. But like I said, there are some people who also came and, they weren't scheduled, and we allowed them to speak. So any member of the public could speak. Now, I realize that with this task force and with an open forum such as that, there is some risk involved. But from our perspective, the potential reward was much greater. It really was. And so I would say, when it comes to our pitching, just so you understand the style here in Illinois, so once that advisory goes out, we usually follow up the same day to make sure it was received. We send out the advisory again the morning of the event, and then we do follow-up calls. So we talk to all of the TV, radio, and print in those respective media markets. And then what we would do, we would use that opportunity to update the beneficiaries, state them on the beneficiaries, if we would have some, if we would have more, that type of thing, give them some more background and offer any updates. So when it came to the beneficiary profiles, and like I said, this was key. We had to have these personal stories, and it really did. It drove the point home, and we just kind of lucked up, I guess you can say, on some really fascinating, incredible stories, unfortunate stories, but some of them really had a happy ending, which is what we were going for. And so when it came to our research team, which was Lee and Benno, they really just knocked it out of the park with identifying some of these people. And I have to say something else about Lee. He's really served as a communications liaison. So he actually belongs to the Unclaimed Property Division, but we borrow him a lot for things like this because in addition to setting up all the beneficiaries with help from Benno, he's just great to have as a liaison to do research, to help us set up interviews, social media responses, that type of thing. So if you can get yourself a Lee or a Benno, I totally encourage that. But they were just so helpful throughout this process. And the way we found the beneficiaries, and Benno, I'll eventually turn it over to him to explain this better, but it was just a review of our own records to find out who had not, benefited from these audits. So there was a lot of follow-up, there was a lot of persistence. Benno even makes house visits, which was incredibly fascinating. And it really just did, it really helped us send the message and drive that message home. So with that, I'll toss it to Benno, and he can explain in more detail exactly how they got that accomplished.
Oh, thank you so much, Paris. It's a real honor for me to be on this call, and thanks, NASS, for asking Veris to participate. And I think Paris did a wonderful job, as she always does, in describing the background to what I'm going to call the TULIP hearings, and that just stands for Task Force on Unclaimed Life Insurance Policies. So my involvement with the Illinois Treasury actually predates by a couple of years the TULIP hearings, which Paris described, of which there were 8, I think 7 or 8 across the state. And originally, I work as a one-man band. There's no charge to the states that Verus provides this service to. And as David graciously described, I have a background doing this, so I'm comfortable doing it. And unlike when I was doing it for broadcasters or for local news or even in some cases newspapers that we had partnerships with, these people, for the most part, were thrilled to see me. Once they got a call from the Treasury or got a call from me or an email, or sometimes we even engaged with them on social media, there was no hounding them. There was no begging them to talk like you do in the media because you're going to go at 6 p.m. whether or not you have anything. I was just astonished, and I think the Treasury was too, at just the percentage of yeses we got. And we started by, again, just trying to get some documentation on video. So I would, either Lee or myself or Paris's team would contact these beneficiaries, and we would actually compare zip codes. So we knew where someone might be, and I would knock on the door. And initially we were shooting for video. And I think I had about an 80 or a 90% success rate once we established, once we got through the fact that we're not looking for anything, we're not giving them money, nor are we asking for money. So let's go to slide 12, and I just want to look, if we can, at one of the original videos, which will be very important. And this video was just produced ahead of the TULIP hearings to raise awareness about unclaimed property and to encourage people to check and to let people know that it's not just on newspapers anymore, that you can actually go online, and that it's easy. So this original series, if we can advance the slide, there we go. Yep. This original series was that. Let's take a listen.
It was my father's policy, and I didn't know nothing about it.
We knew nothing about it. It was quite a gift.
Any money you get that is owed you is good.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have gotten money that they did not know was coming, and it has changed their life. And
it's wonderful. I believe that the state did the right thing.
If checking for unclaimed property seems like a waste of time, listen to these people across Illinois.
Money from heaven.
They could be your neighbors, friends, or even family members. They could be you.
Believe me, it was a shock, and the policies were issued back in the 30s, and I just assumed that they had been paid out. It was just mind-boggling. I couldn't believe it. It's just a surprise. I mean, it makes you feel good all over.
It was a life insurance policy that I'd forgotten about. When they actually sent me the form in the mail, that's when I saw how much money it was, and I was in shock. It did change my life. It basically helped me become debt-free. So yeah, it changed my life a lot.
I don't know who came up with that idea to get the state involved, but I deeply want to thank them.
Your Treasury came up with the idea to get the state involved. To make sure insurance money reached beneficiaries, Illinois joined nationwide audits of companies. Resulting agreements mean insurers now search out beneficiaries or turn their money over to the state treasury for people to claim.
I feel very good to know that something was there that he had coming, and it was taken care of, by the state. I feel that his chapter is closed.
It was money from heaven, really. It was nice.
Money paid out after Illinois Treasury joined audits of insurers.
Thank my mother. I mean, $8,000. I don't care who it is, you can use that.
Now I'm able to, do things that I wouldn't have been able to do without that money. Like spend money on my grandkids.
Even if you've checked before, check again. Discover what's yours today. Search illinoistreasurer.gov and click on iCash.
So that was the original series, and there were 2 beneficiaries that were interviewed on camera in that series, again, just to raise awareness about unclaimed property. One was Cecil Hill, one was Anthony Wisniewski. And the great thing is that because Illinois Treasury and we had this relationship with those beneficiaries, when this issue of that the Treasury wanted to take action on regarding these 2 bills came up, it was very easy. And, we shared these videos with them. These videos were on the Treasurer's website. I think they also shared them on social media. These people, and again, they didn't ask for any money. They were thrilled with the results, and they loved seeing themselves, and there's a real positive message. So they got it. And when the TULIP hearings started, it was very easy for us to just pick up the phone or just send them an email. What was astounding, and I'm sure Lee and Paris would echo these comments, was just how willing, once the TULIP hearing started across Illinois, was just how willing these people were to drive great distances. If we go to the next video, I mean, some of these people actually appeared at multiple hearings. There's Anthony Wisniewski that you see to the left, and there's Cecil Hill to the right. They appeared in person, and they also appeared at in hearings, and obviously in the videos. And Paris was with me. It was such teamwork. Paris was with me when we did the interview in Springfield with the gentleman you see on the right, Cecil Hill. But these guys, and women as well, these guys were getting in their cars with little notice in some cases when the TULIP hearings were underway, and were willing to show up and not only appear on video, but appear in person. So let's take a listen to the next video.
Since 2011, auditors working on behalf of the Illinois Treasurer's Office have discovered over $500 million, $550 million in death benefits that were not paid to grieving families here in Illinois.
There was no reason why they couldn't have found us. I mean, no reason whatsoever.
And my mom and dad lived in the same house their whole life.
They didn't miss the payments, did they?
Oh, no. No, but let me tell you what, if she would have missed the payment, they'd have been right there. You can bet they would have found her then.
It's basically probably one of the worst bets you'll ever make. They're betting that you live, you're betting that you die. They're not one of the most profitable businesses in the entire United States by accident.
Well, her being 93 and seniors are on a limited, income, this helps with her care. So for all these years, they received all the interest on this money. They got all of that, and they still wanted to be greedy and keep the little bit that was my mother's.
Did the insurance company call you or your mother?
No, I can answer that. No, they didn't. They did not do that.
They never reached out to your family? No member of your family was reached out to?
No.
I've got to repeat this. They made no effort to ever reach out to you to let you know this policy existed?
That's correct. But my dad worked very, very hard to make sure my mother had a comfortable life. So it isn't their money, it is my mother's money, and it's important that she get it.
To me, it's one short step from theft. That's the thing. The state shouldn't have to be doing all this. The insurance company should be doing it. They should be attempting to contact the policyholder. I think, somebody has to do it. And the state's the only one that can at this point. The insurance company is obviously not trying to do it.
If it were not for your office, and I'm not just saying this because I'm testifying, and the extraordinary efforts they made, we would never know. Insurance is really there to meet the human needs. We shouldn't be about the bottom line. We should be about the human beings and the families that are touched by tragedy.
For an insurance company to be able to hold monies and say that I didn't give it to you because you didn't ask for it really shows really no integrity. And so from my perspective, it just simply comes down to just greed.
I think it's absolutely wonderful that this bill has been passed. It's going to go in the hands of people who are in need. If you're caviar and lobster and steak and you don't know nothing about a McDouble, then it's hard for you to grasp the need of a person having this kind of money.
So that video was obviously, there was some footage that was mixed in during the TULIP hearing moments, as we're calling that slide, of the beneficiaries at home, and that just, I think that just makes it a little bit more powerful. But with exactly, I think, one exception in that story or in that segment, all those people showed up in person, and they, as we said, they did this on their own dime. They were fired up about this issue. They had incredible knowledge about the whole life insurance, the question of life insurance and the two bills that we were dealing with. They may not have known the ins and outs of those bills, but they got it when either Paris or Lee or myself spoke with them. And we didn't have to twist any arms. That's what really shocked me. They wanted to be involved, and in some cases they were driving 2 hours or going to multiple hearings across the state. I think just personally, I think the most remarkable hearing for me in just watching all of this unfold was the one that we're looking at now, which was in Chicago. And we had, I think, between 3 and 6 beneficiaries who came to this hearing. And some of these leads, as we call them, were developed by the Treasury, and some of them we found. When I say we, I mean Veris working directly with the Treasury. And as I said, we would just split up the zip codes, and we would have a list of beneficiaries, and then we would either contact them via email or phone calls, and they got back to us really quickly. The other thing that was remarkable for me is my background is in video, so that's what I was really wanting to push. But what I found was, as Paris talked about, the videos are great, but having someone who's at one of these hearings, as you'll see, who testifies in person, was invaluable, because you get the media there, whether it's print or broadcast. They know they're going to have a story. They know they're going to have a person that they can interview after the hearings. And for reporters that are working as one-man bands, that means they know they're going to be able to file that day with some footage of the hearing, and then a one-on-one interview with the beneficiary. So let's listen to Pastor Mark Henton, who again was developed by the Treasury. They found him. I just got him there, but he was remarkable.
All of this is wonderful. And I just believe greater things are coming. All of this work was done because of what it was that we received. And so it made a huge difference.
Why is he so happy? Pastor Mark Henton claimed nearly $40,000 for his Chicago church after his state treasurer ordered audits of insurance giants. His church parking lot needed the repairs that money paid for, badly. Henton had no idea parish members who died years ago named his church the beneficiary in life insurance policies. His administrator accidentally saw it on the state's unclaimed property website.
Gladys Piper called me from the treasurer's office. She said, Regina, not only did we find $2,000 or $3,000, she said, we found a little bit more. And I was like, how much more? And when she said like almost $36,000, I was like, what? So it was great. I mean, the church, of course, by all means needed it, but it was money that we never would have known anything about it. If you don't know it's there, you can't receive it. So I think they should be made accountable.
Illinois State Treasurer Michael Frerichs convened statewide hearings to protect the rights of beneficiaries like Pastor Henton.
Since 2011, auditors working on behalf of the Illinois Treasurer's Office have discovered over $500 million, $550 million in death benefits that were not paid to grieving families here in Illinois. I have never met a man or a woman who paid a life insurance premium with the expectation that money would be held by the insurance company after their death.
But some insurers are fighting audits, saying it's not their job to find and tell beneficiaries. Pastor Henton strongly disagrees. He came to testify at a hearing in Chicago in late August to help boost legislation protecting people like him.
For an insurance company to be able to hold monies and say that I didn't give it to you because you didn't ask for it really shows really no integrity. And so from my perspective, it just simply comes down to just greed. We have buried many people who came and said, well, my mother passed or my son has passed, and we just don't have the monies to put them away. To think that there may be possibly some cases where the insurance company had these monies and it was not released is just unimaginable to me.
While hearings progressed, Illinois' governor signed a bill into law championed by Treasurer Frerichs that requires companies check if a policyholder has died and then notify beneficiaries so they can collect what's theirs.
I think it's absolutely wonderful that this bill has been passed. It's going to go in the hands of people who are in need. If you're caviar and lobster and steak and you don't know nothing about a McDouble, then it's hard for you to grasp the need of a person having this kind of money.
So do what Pastor Henton and thousands of others across Illinois have done. Discover what's yours today. Check online.
Obviously, there was some footage there of time that I spent with Pastor Henton, both at his church and in the hearing in Chicago as well. But the point about for this webinar is, and we offered those stories to the Illinois Treasury for them to use on social media and their website. But for this webinar, you can see he's just, I mean, this guy is incredible in terms of his presence, in terms of how articulate he is. And so by him being there at that hearing, and this was picked up and there were editorials, and it was just sort of, it was one-stop shopping for the reporters who were covering that hearing. And when they heard from people like him, the editorials included a lot of his comments. And there was another remarkable beneficiary from that August hearing in Chicago that I want to listen to now, Lynn Soto, who is a lawyer, and it was very articulate, as you'll hear. She got over $100,000, and this was just a remarkable story, and you can see why it was picked up in some of the large media in Chicago. You know, her best friend had special needs children. She died tragically in a car accident with one of her children, and Lynn Soto, who was her friend, also has special needs kids, and she decided to adopt those children. And the mother who perished in that car accident on a tollway outside of Chicago, she had actually set up an insurance policy because she knew that these kids were going to need extra help as they aged. So Lynn Soto, already having a family of her own, adopted these children, and she adopted the children way before she learned that there was over $100,000 waiting for her to claim, by the Treasury. You know, they contacted her, and she didn't believe it at first. So she was just remarkable, and let's listen to her.
If not for audits of insurance giants, Lynn Lucchesi Soto would never have received money her family needed. She adopted her friend's special needs sons after tragedy, unaware their mom had life insurance.
The boy's mom died on a highway, and their mother and sister died before their very eyes. I don't think they were in any shape at that point to even think about insurance. They were teenagers at the time. And so they came to live with my family, and they became ours.
Nearly 10 years after her friend's death, Lynn learned the boy's mother had taken out a large insurance policy. Lynn claimed over $100,000 to help secure their future.
It was astonishing to see government in action doing what it should do. It was just, I can't even tell you, life-changing.
At hearings showing why legislation championed by Illinois State Treasurer Michael Frerichs is so important, Lynn and others shared their gratitude.
And the insurance never contacted us. If it were not for your office, and I'm not just saying this because I'm testifying, and the extraordinary efforts they made, we would never know.
Thousands are claiming money, but some companies are resisting audits.
Since 2011, auditors working on behalf of the Illinois Treasurer's Office have discovered over $500 million, $550 million in death benefits that were not paid to grieving families here in Illinois.
The insurance is really there to meet the human needs. We shouldn't be about the bottom line. We should be about the human beings and the families that are touched by tragedy, and the use of this insurance proceeds, you know, we're supposed to be for something important, for the ones that the insured care for.
As hearings progressed, Illinois' governor signed a bill into law requiring companies use tools to let people know if they're owed money.
I couldn't navigate this insurance. I just simply didn't know. And not that I'm a genius or anybody special, but how could somebody else who didn't have my advantages ever do that? The people that are caring for disabled children and parents and elderly. It's mind-boggling.
Go online. Discover what's yours today.
We will forever be grateful to the state for what they did. It was just unbelievable, the extraordinary efforts they went to for my children. It's unbelievable.
So you can see there how great she is on camera. She was also great in person. You saw some of the footage from the hearing in Chicago. I love that footage because in the back you can actually see one of the big editorial writers from, I think, the Chicago Tribune is in the back, and he's just taking notes. And those quotes were all over his story. The other thing about Lynn Soto, and again, there was no money changing hands or anything like that. She appeared, and Paris can talk about this, she appeared at other events the Illinois Treasury organized about this issue after the bills. And again, she would make herself available on very short notice. She has numerous children. She's a lawyer. She's very busy. But these people and the beneficiaries you've seen here in these videos felt so passionate about it. I mean, I would come in with thinking I was going to have to do a really hard sell. And I couldn't have been more wrong. They wanted to be involved. They looked at this as like a civic engagement. And all that it required in terms of working with, it doesn't necessarily have to be a large state like Illinois in order to do something like this. What it required was just teamwork in terms of keeping a very, very careful record of who's had the last outreach with that person. It's just easy with a spreadsheet. And then I would talk to Lee or to Paris and just say, hey, I left a message for Lynn Soto. She sounds like she's good. You may want to just talk with her on Monday, or send her an email and just tell her that you're excited that she's coming. But I found less is more, and that's not my background. My background is to try to get some sort of a comment no matter what. And I didn't need to do that here. So with that, if we can go to the final report, which was prepared by, there you see the Task Force on Unclaimed Life Insurance Policies. This was the final report. The videos, screenshots of the videos and the stories were included in that. And the other thing before I send it back to Paris that I found remarkable, just as a former journalist, was none of these people asked me, as you saw in those videos, none of them asked me to obscure their faces or tile their faces or use their first name only or their last name. They were willing to let us use their likeness and their quotes in perpetuity. If they needed to sign a release, they were willing to do that. I mean, they just wanted to be involved. And so you can see in the report there, you can see he's got his full name and he's talking about, there's a quote and it tells a little bit of his story, and it's just much more effective to have him there in full. So with that, so we leave a little time for questions. I want to send it back to Paris, but I guess the final thought was, I thought it was going to be hard, and this was not hard.
Thanks, Benno. So yeah, the videos definitely bring back so many memories, and it's really sad in so many ways, and the stories were particularly compelling. Lynn Soto's was probably the standout out of all of them. And you know what? The videos really just remind me like how incredibly proud I am to be a part of such an effort to help people like Lynn Soto and Pastor Hinton. And, it was a team effort, but thanks to these testimonies, this is what really, I think, just helped really get this done. And, we have an incredible legislative team and comms team. It's not just me. There's plenty of folks on our comms team that are making these things move forward, writing the releases, the advisories, helping on the timing, helping with the strategy. Legal was heavily involved. And really the public support that we received, like Benno said, people wanted to help us spread the word. And that was really, key to helping us get these two bills signed into law. So when I move to the next slide to talk about the numbers, you'll see on the right side of the slide some of the headlines we received. And I mean, it was incredible. Fair fights for more access to death benefits. Our view, make insurers pay out death benefits, get loved ones benefits they deserve. And we got over 500 media hits throughout this process. And that one was really the first bill. So, when we would put those releases out and, again, when the 60 Minutes piece aired, that really helped us. And so when those stories would get picked up online, they would get picked up locally, then statewide, then nationwide. And we reached a lot of people, and that really helped, especially when we went to lobby the legislators. So we would get these editorials or these news stories would show up in their communities, and we would forward that. The legislative team would use those articles to help get them on our team, help get them on our side. And so that made a huge difference. And when we look at social media, again, this is just another way to get the message out. We use the Treasurer's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram accounts, and it was really about getting the public informed, keeping them connected, and we wanted them to act. And so we would ask the elected officials, members of the task force, to share, to like, to retweet. And the video in this next slide is really what it was great. We got over 3,000 views. It had 82 shares. And so for a lot of you who may be, who may oversee the social media in your shops, it's hard to get likes sometimes. It's certainly even harder to get shares. So over 3,000 views and 82 shares was a big deal for us. So when we look at the campaign results as a whole, we had a really great run. When we did the first bill, we were worried about, is the media tired of this issue, when we introduced the second bill, but they never tired. It was important. It was something they wanted to cover. And as a result, we got 2 new consumer-friendly laws passed in Illinois. We raised public awareness about the issue. Millions in life insurance money was returned to victims and their families. And I would say we beat the powerful life insurance industry, and that was a huge, huge victory for our team. So we were incredibly happy about that. And if we can go to the slide with the Treasurer's quote, I can end it there and we can open up for questions. The Treasurer, as you even heard in one of the videos, we really just had a theme, and the quote that he likes the most, there was a couple he used, but one he liked the most was, "I've never met a man or a woman who purchased life insurance with the expectation that the death benefits would stay with the insurance company rather than their family." And you also heard from one of the beneficiaries that it was like money from heaven. And that was another one that he would use because it was so powerful, that these people were, they kind of felt like their loved ones were kind of reaching down, and it was just such a blessing for a lot of these people to get the money that their parents and their loved ones left behind. So with that, I would like to open up for questions. If there's any member on my team that joined the call that thinks there's anything that we missed that you want to chime in on, please do so, and I'll turn it over to the organizers. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks a million, Paris and Benno. One question is, what about the planning, the very beginning? I guess Treasurer Frerichs called you on the phone or sent you an email or something to that effect. And what happened then? Did you actually write a written plan? Did you have a war room? How did I'm sure some things evolved, maybe, but how about commenting on that? What about the planning of this?
Yeah, so it took an incredible amount of planning, and I mentioned our legal and our legislative team and comms as well, but a lot of scheduling was involved as well to get the Treasurer connected with the right people and move around the state. So throughout this process, and my memory is a little foggy because we started a few years ago, right as the Treasurer took office, and he's rounding out the end of his term. But throughout the process over the last 2 to 3 years, we have written multiple media plans, and sometimes the media plan would be just for one specific thing that we're trying to do. So, you know, there may have been a plan unique to the amendatory veto, you know, a separate plan on how we would do the task force hearings. And so we had multiple media plans, but yes, it was a lot of planning up front and getting in the same room with the teams that I had mentioned. And, you know, the legislative team, the communications team, all of us just worked incredibly close together. And yeah, some ideas moved forward, some did not. My biggest concern was, like I mentioned earlier, is that the press would just get tired of this issue. And, you know, it was, you know, life insurance were like, okay, we're gonna talk about this again, you know, and they were all over it because it was such an important issue. But, you know, the treasurer initially, I can't remember who he talked to in the very beginning, but we knew right away, once he found out that this was happening, that this would be a priority for our administration. And it was something that we needed to fix. And so whatever we needed to do to make that happen, we needed to do it. And so lots of planning, lots of back and forth, lots of ideas, and sometimes it was trial and error as well. So I'm happy to hand over any, you know, as a follow-up to this call, hand over some of the media plans that we put together, and they're very basic. It just really kind of runs down timing and locations and when we would send out certain things and what the message was for that particular time frame.
Can I just jump in and just
yeah, please.
Can I jump in, David, and just echo a couple of Paris's comments? You know, I think the reason why the media was so into this, I'm sure the 60 Minutes story didn't hurt. That was a lead story. But I think the reason why the media in the different zip codes or the different markets in Illinois, why they never tired of this, is because Paris and her team, Lee and others, always assured them and delivered on that assurance that there were going to be live bodies there who had incredible stories to share. And they were going to get a story there, and it wasn't just going to be, you know, talking heads of government officials. It was actually going to be a personalized story of someone who lived in that community that could relate this issue. And for an assignment editor or a producer or a one-man band reporter, that's gold, because they know they're going to have something good, and they know it's all going to be in one location. So when these hearings continued across the state, I thought it was terrific and fun. It was like a barnstorming tour. But they showed up, and if these, you know, and the people in the media noticed that.
I know I do not have this list in front of me, and I apologize. I didn't think about this question coming up. But do we know about how many states now require insurance companies to go over their policies and compare them against the Social Security death master file to see if any of these people have passed away?
I can say that I know this issue is obviously not specific to a big state like Illinois. I don't have specific numbers, but I believe, without having looked at the transcript or viewed that segment, I believe that was also covered in the 60 Minutes story. And you know, they're a national broadcast, so they would, I don't think they would make it, I know they wouldn't make it state specific, but I don't have the actual specifics, David, in terms of what other states have this.
Well, Benno, thanks for bringing that up. Both of you, thanks for mentioning the 60 Minutes story. If you go to the NAWPA website, which is unclaimed.org, and click the news button, I do have a link to the 60 Minutes story. Now, you cannot watch the actual video because they want $9 a month to do that, and I'm in the process of trying to cancel that now, but it may take probably 6 months. But anyway, you can read the transcript. They actually have just like a court reporter was sitting there and taking down every single word. So a couple pictures, and you can definitely, view the transcript, shall we say, of that story, and it's a very powerful read, even without seeing the video. Well, we've run right up on 3 o'clock. Paris, Benno, do you have any final comments about this?
I would just say again that, I'm incredibly proud to have been a part of this process and join our team to get this accomplished. This is why we get into public service. And this was just a great example of the importance of having public servants and elected officials who care and, a strong team that can work together. So I'm super grateful for that. It was a learning experience, and I'm thankful that you guys had me join this call. So thanks for that. But, I would say anyone who's on the call that wants to reach out, that has some questions that you didn't want to answer or ask with the group, please feel free to reach out. I will share anything that I have that would be helpful to you and your team. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
And I would just echo those comments.
Yeah, go ahead, Benno.
I just echo what Paris said. It was just thrilling to be involved with this and to see, that this actually had an impact on people's lives, and it was remarkable that it was so easy to do in retrospect with the luxury of hindsight.
Well, thank you, Benno and Paris, and it is my honor to work with both of you closely on unclaimed property. I'd like to turn it over to close the webinar. Turn it over to my excellent colleague Jeremy Dawson.
Thank you, David, and thank you again, Paris and Benno, for taking the time to lead the discussion on this important topic. It was really interesting, informative, seeing the real impact that you made there, and all of us at NAST and NAPA greatly appreciate the time and effort that it took. So to everyone out there, thank you all for participating. I hope you'll join us next Wednesday and on the 22nd for the next in our series. And I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.